Have you ever sat in a room full of people and felt like you were the only one wishing to be somewhere else entirely? Have you ever declined an invitation, not out of bitterness or sadness, but because something within you quietly understood that your energy was meant for a different space? If you've ever discovered more serenity between the walls of your own home than in the liveliest of social gatherings, then what I'm about to share today may entirely transform the way you perceive yourself in your spiritual path. Let's explore something that the world rarely grasps, yet something Edgar Cayce, one of the most insightful spiritual teachers of the modern era, identified as a sacred pattern among those summoned to a greater calling. There's a question carried silently by millions, a question often cloaked in shame or bewilderment. Why do I feel more awake, more grounded, more like myself when I'm alone at home than when I'm surrounded by others? Society has names for this tendency. They label it introversion, social anxiety, or even avoidance. But what if I told you that what you've long considered a flaw may in fact be one of your most powerful spiritual gifts? Before we dive in, please tap the like button and share with me where in the world you're tuning in from today. It's always wonderful to see the diverse places our community joins us from. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe and switch on the notification bell so none of our upcoming videos slip past you. Stick around until the very end, because what you're about to uncover may truly astonish you. There is a profound distinction between isolation that arises from emotional wounds and withdrawal that fulfills a divine purpose. The chosen ones, and yes, this may very well include you, do not retreat from the world because they are damaged or fearful, at least not in the manner most people assume. They withdraw because they have nurtured a sensitivity that the majority of people never develop. Has this ever happened to you? You step into a packed room, and within moments you feel depleted, as though the atmosphere itself is siphoning energy straight from your soul. You endure conversations that ring hollow, observing people trade words devoid of meaning, laughter devoid of joy, connections devoid of depth. And while everyone else appears utterly content skimming the surface, you find yourself gasping for air. This isn't weakness. This is spiritual discernment functioning at a level most people never encounter. Edgar Cayce recognized that those summoned to something greater often carry what he called a heightened vibrational sensitivity. You aren't merely reading the room. You're reading the energy, the intentions, the authenticity, or the absence of it. And when your surroundings fail to match the frequency you've cultivated within yourself during those sacred hours of solitude, your entire being rejects it. Not from arrogance, but from self-preservation. But here's where it goes even further, and this is what most spiritual teachers won't reveal. Your craving for solitude, your need for home as sanctuary, may not be a permanent condition. It may be a season, a divine season of preparation, during which something profound is being built within you. Something the world isn't yet ready to witness, and something you aren't yet ready to share. The question isn't whether you should leave your home. The question is recognizing when withdrawal nurtures your growth and when it becomes a prison. And that distinction changes everything. Now, I want to dig even further into this subject because there's a pattern woven throughout history that most people overlook entirely. When you study the greatest spiritual leaders, the ones who genuinely transform the world, you'll notice something striking about their paths. Before they ever addressed crowds, before they ever swayed nations, before their names became recognized, they vanished. Moses wasn't leading the Israelites out of Egypt when God first called him. He was out in the wilderness, shepherding flocks, tucked away in obscurity for 40 years. David wasn't seated on a throne the moment he was anointed as the future king. He was by himself in the pastures, watching over his father's sheep, unknown and seemingly unimportant. And even Jesus, the very embodiment of divine purpose, spent 40 days in total isolation in the desert before he ever uttered a single word of his public ministry. This isn't coincidence. This is divine design. There's a hidden truth that most spiritual teachings skim over. Transformation doesn't take place on stage. It takes place in the silence. Your home, your room, that quiet corner where you feel most like yourself. That's not your hiding place. It's your workshop. It's the place where God is rebuilding something inside you that the world isn't ready to see yet. Your thoughts are being rewired, old wounds are finally being confronted, and an identity that was shattered is slowly being made whole again. This is the sacred season of formation, and it demands withdrawal. The world notices your absence and labels it weakness, but heaven recognizes it as essential preparation for the impact you're destined to make. If you've made it this far, I want you to understand that's not accidental. The fact that you've stayed through this entire message tells me something about where you are in your journey right now. You're not simply consuming content casually. You're reaching for something deeper, something that speaks to what you're genuinely going through in your life. And that matters. Listen, I make these videos because I understand how lonely it can feel when you're walking a spiritual path that most people around you don't grasp. When you're trying to discern whether you're being led or just afraid, whether you're in preparation or avoidance, it helps to have someone traveling beside you, even if it's through a screen. If this spoke to you, if you discovered something meaningful in what we unpacked together today, I'd truly appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel. Not for the sake of numbers, but because it means you'll be present for the next conversation and everyone that follows. This is an ongoing path we're walking together, and I want to continue showing up for you the same way you showed up for this video. And do me one small favor. Drop a comment right now and simply write, "This message was meant for me." Because when I see those words, I know that what we're creating here has weight. I know these conversations are landing precisely where they're supposed to. Beyond that, it helps me understand what's resonating with you, so I can keep producing content that genuinely supports your growth. If this video offered you a fresh perspective, if it challenged you or lifted you up, or helped you see yourself with more clarity, go ahead and tap that like button. It's a small act, but it signals to me that we're aligned, and it helps this message find other people who need to hear it just as much as you did. Now, there's a video right here that takes this conversation even deeper. It dives into what unfolds when the chosen ones finally walk through that door, the challenges waiting on the other side, and how to navigate that shift without losing yourself along the way. Click on it and join me over there. I'll meet you on the other side. But this is where we need to get painfully honest, because there's a boundary so subtle that countless people cross it without any awareness. There arrives a moment when what began as divine protection starts to transform into something altogether different, an emotional cage. And this is the part that demands genuine self-reflection, the kind that unsettles you. When you decline every invitation, when you sidestep every opportunity that stretches you, when your solitude no longer feels like peace and begins to feel like fear, something has changed. The chosen ones, precisely because they've known rejection or misunderstanding in their past, develop an extraordinary talent for self-preservation. You learn to read people, to assess environments, to protect your energy, and that's genuine wisdom. But when that wisdom hardens into a wall that keeps you permanently isolated, when every choice gets filtered through the question, "What if I get hurt again?" then we're no longer discussing strategic withdrawal. We're discussing paralysis dressed up as spirituality. Purpose operates in two phases, and most people only embrace one of them. Yes, it calls for the secret place. Yes, it demands solitary time, where foundations get laid and character gets forged. But purpose also demands presence. It demands that you eventually walk out of that comfortable space and into the messy, unpredictable reality of human connection and divine assignment. The question you need to be asking yourself right now is this: am I in a season of preparation, or have I converted preparation into permanent avoidance? Because the answer to that question decides whether you're moving toward your destiny or fleeing from it. If this is striking a chord with you right now, write in the comments, "I'm ready for what's next." Let that be your declaration, not just to me, but to yourself and to the universe that's been patiently waiting for you to see the difference between hiding and becoming. There's a verse Edgar Cayce often cited, one that holds the key to understanding this entire journey you're walking. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and sound mind." Now, most people hear that and assume it's simply encouragement to be courageous. But look more carefully at that final phrase, sound mind. The original translation refers to balance, to equilibrium, to a mindset that doesn't swing violently between extremes. And this is exactly where so many chosen ones stumble. It's not that they lack faith, it's that they haven't grasped that spiritual maturity doesn't live at either extreme of the spectrum. Consider this. Some people hurl themselves into every social encounter, every opportunity, every demand placed on their time and energy, believing that's what faith looks like. Within months, they're burned out, emotionally drained, spiritually spent, puzzled as to why their gifts feel more like weights than blessings. Then there are others, and perhaps this describes you, who withdraw so thoroughly into solitude that their gifts never see daylight. They grow so accustomed to isolation that they persuade themselves it's holiness, when in reality it's just atrophy wearing a spiritual costume. Neither extreme captures what we were designed for. The reality is that God works in the tension between preparation and action, between the hidden place and the public arena, between rest and responsibility. This is the concealed revelation that transforms everything. Power counters paralysis, love counters selfishness, and balance counters the extremes that ruin potential. You need power to move when fear commands you to freeze. You need love to make sure your gifts serve others instead of merely shielding yourself. And you need that sound mind, that divine equilibrium, to discern when to pull back and when to step forward. This isn't a single decision. It's a daily recalibration, an ongoing dialogue with the divine about where you stand and where you need to go. If anything in this video connected with where you are right now, show me by tapping that like button. It's a simple way of telling me this message reached you, and it helps others who need to hear this find their way here. And here's something that may catch you off guard, something that runs counter to nearly everything you've been taught in religious circles. When you step into a packed room and feel your heart pounding, when your thoughts spiral into self-doubt, when the sounds and pressures seem to weigh you down, it doesn't mean your faith is weak. I'll repeat that because it matters. Feeling anxious amid overwhelming input isn't a spiritual shortcoming. It's a natural human reaction tied to an emotional process that calls for awareness and deliberate growth. Faith doesn't override your nervous system. It doesn't skip past the genuine psychological patterns shaped by years of experience, trauma, or heightened sensitivity. Faith holds you up while you put in the effort to grow through those things. Perhaps God is using this very season of inner reflection to fortify who you truly are at the deepest level, to forge an identity that can't be rattled by crowds, criticism, or chaos. But here's the hard truth. He's also waiting on you to take purposeful steps forward. The strength cultivated in solitude is intended to prepare you for something beyond your own doorway. The real question isn't whether you'll ever feel totally at ease in every setting. The real question is whether you'll trust that the foundation forming inside you is sturdy enough to carry you into the places that still unsettle you. If the bigger picture is becoming clear to you, if you're realizing your path isn't about picking between hiding away and stepping out, but about discovering a rhythm that respects both, leave a comment saying, "I'm learning balance," because that small declaration shifts something within your awareness, and it signals to the universe that you're prepared to move past the extremes. There's a test Edgar Cayce taught about, one that cuts past all the spiritual jargon and goes straight to the core of what's truly unfolding within you. It seems simple, but it demands unflinching honesty. When you choose to stay home, when you turn down that invitation, when you decline that opportunity, pay close attention to what rises up in you immediately afterward. Is it peace that settles over you like a warm blanket? The kind that arrives with clarity and the assurance that you made the right call? Or is it relief? That quick exhale of "I dodged that bullet," followed by a nagging restlessness that never fully fades. This distinction is everything. Peace born from divine alignment strengthens you. It builds confidence in your discernment. It confirms that you're moving in rhythm with your purpose, even when that rhythm involves saying no. But relief born from avoiding what frightens you, that weakens you incrementally, decision by decision, until you wake up one day and realize you've constructed an entire life around what you're running from instead of what you're running toward. Fear is a master of disguise. It never announces its arrival. Instead, it cloaks itself in the language of wisdom, prudence, and spiritual sensitivity. It whispers, "This isn't for me." And you believe it's discernment when it might really be self-sabotage wearing a mask. Here's how you tell them apart. When an opportunity appears before you reflexively dismiss it, pause. Ask yourself, am I saying no because I genuinely sense this doesn't align with my path? Or am I saying no because I'm afraid of what could happen if I say yes? One is discernment, the other is fear protecting itself. And the problem with fear is that the more you feed it, the louder it grows, until eventually it's making every decision for you while you believe you're being led by the Spirit. But now I need to share something that might make you uncomfortable, something that shifts this entire conversation from being about you to being about the larger picture you're part of. While you've been shut away in your home, convinced that your isolation is serving some greater purpose, someone out there has been praying for the very thing you carry. Sit with that for a moment. There's a person wrestling with a question you've already answered. There's someone enduring a crisis you've already walked through. There's an individual who desperately needs to hear from someone who truly understands their unique pain, their specific journey, their particular struggle, and that someone might be you. Your presence isn't simply about you showing up for yourself. It's about you being the answer to someone else's silent prayer. This isn't about pressure or obligation. It's about recognizing that your gifts, your experiences, your hard-won wisdom, they weren't given to you solely for your own personal development. They're meant to flow through you into the world around you. You don't have to shoulder the weight of everyone's problems. You simply need to occupy the space you were designed to fill, to be present in the moments where your specific frequency is needed. Sometimes obedience looks less like a grand gesture and more like simply showing up. Even when every fiber of your being longs to stay hidden behind your door, the impact of your presence may never be fully known to you. You might never hear the complete story of how one conversation altered someone's trajectory, how your willingness to be vulnerable gave someone else permission to do the same, how your decision to step out of isolation at just the right moment set off a ripple effect you'll never witness. If you're starting to realize that your withdrawal might be keeping you from connections already aligned with your calling, write in the comments, "My presence matters." Let that be your declaration that what you carry wasn't meant to remain locked away forever. What most people fail to grasp is that destiny isn't built in one dramatic moment. It isn't built through a single life-altering decision or one sweeping gesture that transforms everything overnight. Destiny is forged in the silent accumulation of small choices nobody else witnesses. Decisions that appear trivial in the moment, but compound across time into something impossible to ignore. Every time you choose to stay home when your spirit is genuinely urging you to step out, you're making a choice. Every time you turn down an opportunity because it feels uncomfortable rather than because it's truly misaligned, you're making a choice. And these choices, repeated day after day, month after month, year after year, don't merely affect your calendar. They reshape the entire course of your life. There's a hidden truth behind the scenes of everyone's story. The life you'll be living 5 years from now is being constructed by the micro decisions you're making today. And for the chosen ones, this reality carries even greater weight because the stakes are higher. When you remain withdrawn past the season that withdrawal was intended to serve, something begins to wither. It's not immediate. It's not obvious. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, your influence starts to weaken. And I need you to grasp what influence actually means, because most people get this entirely wrong. Influence isn't about having a platform. It's not about standing on a stage or amassing thousands of followers or being recognized in public. Influence is about active presence within the specific spaces where you've been planted. It's counseling a friend at the exact moment they need your perspective. It's leading your family with emotional steadiness when chaos threatens to overwhelm. It's stepping into responsibility in situations where everyone else is pulling back. The door of your home, that threshold you cross or refuse to cross each day, represents something far more significant than you may have realized. It's not your enemy. It's not a threat to your peace or your spiritual depth. That door is a passageway, a portal connecting two essential realities you must learn to navigate with wisdom. On one side lies the secret place, the sanctuary where you are refined, strengthened, and transformed. On the other side lies the field where all that inner work finds its expression and its purpose. And here is what maturity truly looks like. Understanding that walking through that door does not mean abandoning everything you've built in solitude. It means expanding your influence while preserving your depth. It means taking the discipline, the self-awareness, and the spiritual sensitivity you've cultivated in private and letting them touch the world beyond your walls. From this moment forward, the question itself changes. You're no longer asking, why don't I like leaving home? Instead, you begin asking, when should I go out? Where should I go? And why? This shift in perspective changes everything. It transforms you from someone ruled by comfort into someone guided by purpose. You continue to treasure that secret place. You never abandon the practice of withdrawal for renewal and communion with the divine. You continue to care for your emotional health, establishing boundaries and protecting your energy. But you also grant yourself permission to let what has been built within find its way outward. The maturity of the chosen one is not found in flawless isolation or in constant exposure. It is found in the wisdom to discern which season you are in and the courage to transition when the moment arrives. If you sense that your season is shifting, that the door you've been treating as a wall might in fact be an invitation, write in the comments, I'm ready to walk through. Because acknowledging that readiness, even when you aren't entirely certain what lies on the other side, is how transformation moves from concept into reality. If you've come this far, I want you to know that it isn't by chance. The simple fact that you've remained with me through this whole message reveals something meaningful about where you find yourself on your path right now. You aren't just passively scrolling through content. You're seeking something more profound, something that resonates with what you're genuinely living through. And that's significant. Listen, I make these videos because I understand how lonely it can feel when you're walking a spiritual road that most of the people around you can't grasp. When you're struggling to discern whether you're being guided or simply afraid, whether you're in a season of preparation or one of avoidance, it truly helps to have a companion walking with you, even if that companionship comes through a screen. So if any of this struck a chord with you, if you discovered something valuable in what we explored together today, I'd sincerely be grateful if you'd subscribe to the channel. Not because the numbers matter to me, but because it means you'll be present for our next conversation and the one following that. This is a continuing journey we're sharing, and I want to keep showing up for you in the same way you showed up for this video. And please do me a favor. Leave a comment right now and just type, "This message was meant for me." Because when I read those words, I know that what we're building together has meaning. I know these conversations are reaching exactly where they're supposed to reach. On top of that, it helps me recognize what's resonating with you so I can keep producing content that genuinely supports your growth. If this video offered you a fresh perspective, if it challenged you or lifted you up or helped you see yourself with greater clarity, go ahead and tap that like button. It's a small act, but it signals to me that we're aligned, and it helps this message find its way to other people who need to hear it just as much as you did. Now, there's a video waiting right here that carries this conversation even deeper. It examines what unfolds when the chosen ones finally cross through that threshold, the trials that accompany it, and how to move through that transition without losing who you are along the way. Click on it and follow along with me on the other side. I'll see you over there.